Royal Rebounds TV with Calvin and Barry. Just two crazy fans of the Sacramento Kings, and they sharing their opinion. So be sure that you subscribe. It's for the fans, by the fans. Whether you chilling on the couch or wilding in the stand. For laid back conversations about the Kings, subscribe here. Staying down until we come up thinking this gonna be our year. We're here drinking beer, talking about the Kings. Be sure you subscribe so you can hear that bell ring. Yeah.
What's up, Kings fans? Welcome back to Royal Rebounds, the Sacramento Kings YouTube channel for fans, by fans. Unfortunately, the Kings lose tonight, 128-110 to the Denver Nuggets. Sabonis has 33 points, and it doesn't quite work out for Sacramento. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to smash that like button down below. And if you would like to join the Royal family with Calvin and I, please hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, it seems the very brief moment of excitement coming out of the All-Star break is now over. Shout out to my man Mike Monticello, who was at the game tonight, sporting his Royal Rebounds gear. He was on the big screen in Golden One Center. Appreciate the love, man. Just wish the Kings could have gotten a win for you on top of that.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. We appreciate you. If you're listening via your favorite podcast platform, we would appreciate a 5-star rating. And if you would like to join us on the show, we are live after every game on YouTube. We will be right back with your Kings Nightcap. All right, welcome back, everybody. I see a lot of pain here in the chat, which is quite unfortunate. We feel your pain. The Kings are officially 2-3 in the Fox and Sabonis era. It's not looking too good for Sacramento, huh, Cal?
It is not looking too good. Sorry, you guys, if the stream is cutting out on you a little bit. Barry and I are working solo tonight. Vinny, our producer, it's his birthday today, so happy birthday, Vinny. But he has the night off. We'll keep an eye on it, though, and see if we can get it fixed for you guys. But, yeah, Barry, you're right. Sabonis he was an all-star tonight. I mean, he was everything that the Kings need him to be. It was great to see him going head-to-head against Jokic. I mean, just the fact that the Kings have somebody that can actually go toe-to-toe with this guy now is pretty incredible in its own right.
Yeah.
But it's still the same old problems for the Kings. Turnovers, miscommunications on defense, guarding the three-point line. Will Barton was an absolute beast tonight for Denver. And I mean, the Kings battled back, but again, they gave up a bunch of these 10-0 runs, 11-0 runs. And it just makes it really, really hard when you put yourself in that hole over and over and over again.
Yeah, we got to see baby Joker versus the real Joker tonight. Unfortunately, the real Joker comes out on top, and that is Jokic. A huge game for him. But bottom line is the Kings lose again, another one, but we did get to see the likes of Damian Jones. We saw Jeremy Lamb. We got to see some of these other Kings guys on the court. And it seems like Alvin Gentry's diving a little bit deeper here into the bench, trying to find something. And unfortunately, they weren't able to pull it out tonight.
Yeah, the rotations were obviously different. I think you have a couple of practices, and this group really hasn't practiced very much together, so it makes sense that they kind of came out with a new look. The lineup they threw out there right at the end of the first, start of the second quarter with Davion, Dante DiVincenzo, Justin Holiday, Trey Lyles, and Sabonis was a really interesting one for me. It's a really solid defensive lineup. If those guys are hitting outside shots, that could be a really lethal lineup, I think, for the Kings moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick, I got to give a shout-out to producer Vinny. I know Calvin already mentioned it, but it is his birthday today, so happy birthday, Vinny. Make sure you guys all wish him happy birthday in the chat. Calvin, I think I'm ready to look at the box score here. You want to go over the box score?
Good call, Mike.
Oh, yeah, you're flipping page around, huh?
Yeah, we'll check out the box score. As you already mentioned, Domantas Sabonis, huge night. By far his best as a member of the Kings. 33 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. The guy was leading the break tonight, left and right. That's something, that we've seen him do with Indiana, but really haven't seen him do much in Sacramento. He just looked much more aggressive. I think he's, finally feeling a little bit more comfortable now on this team, and he really grabbed the ox by the horns, no pun intended.
Only one free throw for him tonight.
Yeah. The game was officiated a little strangely, I thought. They were letting a lot of stuff go. And, you would like him to get to the free throw line more. You would like all these guys. 18 free throw attempts is well below what the Kings average for the season. They've been one of the better teams that get into the free throw line all year.
I think I saw a stat for him saying that he was averaging like 5 free throw attempts a game in Indiana over his career, and he hasn't shot more than 3 in a game in Sacramento.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, he doesn't really – he uses his body to create position and get inside and stuff like that, but he doesn't play above the rim. Good with pump fakes, but he's a very controlled player, so it's like he really slows the game down a lot, and so I can see that being maybe a reason why he wouldn't get to the line that much. As far as the rest of the Kings go, De'Aaron Fox was the other high scorer on this team with 20. I'm seeing a lot of people not happy with his performance, but still 50% shooting, 4 assists, only 1 rebound in 36 minutes. Harrison Barnes, 14 points, and then Jeremy Lamb, the only other Kings player in double figures with 11.
Yeah. Anybody else that stood out to you? I know we've been talking about DiVincenzo. I saw him shoot a lot of threes tonight. I know he made 2 out of 6, which is not bad.
No, it's not. I wouldn't really say anybody stood out to me necessarily. Once again, Davion Mitchell's defense always stands out to me. But I think what stood out to me more than anything, just from the starters and the bench from this whole lineup here, is that the Kings bench now, even though I think we feel like overall it's more talented than it was before the trade deadline, they're just so unsure of how to play with each other right now. There's no guy out, before, even though Buddy Hield had his ups and downs in Sacramento, when him and Davion Mitchell came off the bench, you knew where to expect the shots to come from. You knew where to expect the points to come from. And Terrence Davis, I guess, would be the same thing when Buddy Hield isn't playing or while Terrence Davis was healthy. Right now, they just don't really know. I mean, first of all, Trey Lyles played more minutes tonight than he's played so far in Sacramento, so that's a different look for this bench. Jeremy Lamb was in this game after missing a few games with an ankle injury. So they're still not comfortable with each other yet. And the fact that they don't really have a true point guard out there, I think, is making it difficult to kind of figure out where the shots are going to come from, when it's the right time, and just kind of getting a flow offensively. For the starters, it's the complete opposite now. I mean, we know it's 2-man game with De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis. Cuts off of that. If you get an open layup, great. Otherwise, there might be somebody outside for a 3. It seems very clear and defined when the starters are out there. It's a complete other story when the bench is in.
Yeah, Charlie says here he wants Lamb to start. The Kings need 2 starting guards that can both operate in the pick and roll. What are your thoughts on moving Harkless to the bench and starting Lamb instead?
I think those are good points. The only thing I don't necessarily like about that is Jeremy Lamb's not anywhere near the defender that Mo Harkless is. And at the end of the day, that's still the biggest problem with this team, is that they can't stop anyone. They gave up 128 tonight. They gave up 121 to Denver the last time they played them. So I agree with what you're saying about being able to play in the pick and roll, although I feel like with the floor spacing and how good De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis should be by themselves in the pick and roll, it should still work out okay. But yeah, I mean, it's always defense for me. That's just the biggest problem with this team. It has been for years. And another 50%, 40% field goal and 3-point field goal shooting night respectively for a Kings opponent. You just don't win many games in the NBA when you're constantly giving up that many points and letting teams get wide open shots all night long.
And speaking of Mo Harkless, Mo only played 13 minutes tonight in this game. 5 points in 13 minutes, which I am totally okay with. that puts him in a double-digit scoring if he's playing starter minutes. There's a difference between actually starting the game and playing a good amount of minutes in the game. So if he had doubled that, if he had played, 25 to 30 minutes tonight, he would have had 10 to 12 points if you were to consider the same production. And I'm totally cool with that by Mo Harkless.
Yeah, I think so. For me, it's the turnovers. Just way too many for this team. 15 is actually pretty good for how they started. I think they had 7 in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Which, that's another thing that we talk a lot about with this team is slow starts and things of that nature, playing behind early. So, again, the 13, 14 turnover mark is like my barometer for this team. If they get over that, it's usually bad. They usually lose those games. If they can stay, right around that 11, 12, 13 mark, they've got a good chance. The rebounding was better tonight. That's one thing. It's so noticeably different with having Sabonis in there. The Denver Nuggets are not the best offensive rebounding team in the league, but when you've got a guy like Jokic, it's always a threat. And the Kings were really good on the defensive glass today.
And speaking of turnovers, the Kings actually won the turnover battle in this game.
Overall, yes. Yeah. But it's what comes after that, right?
Exactly.
It's transition points, fast break points. That's how Denver built their lead multiple times in this game. That along with the terrible miscommunications on defense. I mean, the first possession of the game, you got 2 guys out on Will Barton and both leave him wide open for or Jeff Green, maybe it was. Either way, that's how you come out and start the game. And, I'm thinking, oh, crap, here we go again. And it's just I saw a lot of that tonight. 2 guys on the ball after a rotation. Both of them end up turning and leaving. Part of that is because, these guys haven't played a lot together, but it's also just bad miscommunication on defense. And you see it from both the starting lineup and from the bench.
Yeah, it's crazy to think the Kings were down 22 at one point in this game because, although they didn't control the pace of this game, and I feel like they didn't control anything about this game, the Kings were in it, right, until that fourth quarter where they just started to fall apart there. There was multiple runs in this game. In the second quarter, the Kings went on a 10-0 run to tie the game. They let up another run to the Nuggets. Then the Kings go on a 9-2 run. They constantly tried to get back in this game. And as you mentioned, slow starts lead to that, right, where the team is constantly fighting to get over this hump. And it's exhausting.
It is. It is really exhausting. And it's deflating, right? Like it just really takes the wind out of your sails, especially when they're unforced turnovers, like a lot of the turnovers that we see from this team. And yeah, I mean, the coaching, like you can say all that you want about the coaching. You can say it's bad. That's unfortunately, we're not seeing anything change with that at this point.
Yeah.
Firing Alvin Gentry right now does absolutely nothing for this team. Doesn't make them better at all. You're not going to hire a long-term replacement at this point in the season when everybody's making a playoff push. So unfortunately, this is what you're going to get, from a coaching standpoint for the rest of the year. And right now it's about these players taking a little bit more responsibility on themselves on the defensive end.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not going to win a lot of games giving up over 120 points. I think we talked about this last season, right, of like all these streaks, and even early on in this season, all these streaks of allowing 20-plus point games. 110 was enough to win this game if they played some defense. I really believe that. So we got to see a little bit of Trey Lyles tonight. Only 6 minutes for him. I think he played, 1 or 2 really quick minutes in the last game.
Yeah.
We got to see a little bit of him tonight. Like I said, we got to see Jeremy Lamb. We got a little tiny look at Josh Jackson. And some big minutes by Damian Jones. 11 minutes for him. 2 or 3 from the field. I love that block that I saw from him where he just didn't bite for the fake. He stepped right up, and I would have preferred him not to whack it out of bounds. I think that's kind of a thing we saw from JaVale McGee early on in his career, right, where he's just like swatting it out. Mm-hmm. You don't need to do that, but it was a great play.
It was a good play, and it was nice to see him out there again. We hadn't seen Damian Jones in a few games, so it just nice to see him back out there because I like Damian Jones as a player. No Rashawn Holmes tonight. He was listed out with back soreness, right? Lower back soreness.
Yep.
I believe. We'll see what really comes of that, whether it is actually a back issue or maybe the guy is just dealing with, mental health issues. Or
maybe it's a heart issue.
That. Could be a sad heart issue for sure. Thank you, Asha. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Asha. If you guys don't know, since we broke through 1,000, we now accept super chats. So if you would ever like to buy Calvin or myself or Vinny a beer, feel free to send us a super chat. All right, Calvin, we got a good question here by Charlie. Why don't the Kings utilize the swing pass to move the defense and force them to rotate?
Just a shit coach. Maybe that's it, but the Kings have good shooters out there, but they don't have a guy that's that consistent or has been over the course of the entire season to where that's like your main focus here. Plus, when you have a guy like De'Aaron Fox, who really his game is put his head down and get to the basket every time from the top of the key, it's hard to make a swing pass when you're penetrating right into the middle of the paint. You have to kick it out to the outside, and then it's got to swing all the way back around. Skip passes and swing passes are definitely a very common thing in NBA offenses right now. But again, those teams that do that all the time have the guy that usually ends up in the corner and is going to hit 40% of those shots. Outside of Harrison Barnes on this team currently, I don't know of anybody that's going to do that. And Harrison Barnes, the way that they use him, he's often moving all over the court. So he's not the guy that just stands in the corner for threes to accept those passes. So, I don't really know what the answer to that question would be, but it's just not a part of the Kings' game plan right now. And frankly, I'm not so sure that is an issue. I mean, I love how it's only with the starters. When the bench comes in, it's a whole different story. But I love how this team is playing off of Sabonis, cutting really, really well. He's finding them. The turnovers, yes, those need to come down. They still need those reps to be more ready for the passes and all that stuff, be in the right place. Timing is very, very important. But the way that they utilize Fox and Sabonis right now, I think is really, really good, especially because they don't have that dead-eye lethal shooter out there.
Yeah. Shout out, Fred. Thank you. We appreciate it. We will be using that to buy Vinny some beers for his birthday. But yeah, I see what Charlie's saying here. And, for me, it seems like there are times in this game where the Kings just end up not moving. There's been some great plays this season with guys cutting and stuff like that. And then there just also seems to be times where Sabonis has the ball and nobody's making a play, so he can't make the play. I think there was a point in this game, it was either in the fourth or the third quarter, where the Kings double-team Jokic up by the three-point line, and he's pivoting all around trying to find somebody, and then there's a backdoor cut right to the basket for an easy layup. And that's the thing the Kings are not doing, right, is when somebody on the Kings gets double-teamed, everyone kind of freezes, or they try and stand out at the three-point line. There's nobody cutting in. And it's funny, as I watch that happen, I'm like, the Kings need a real rim protector. I wonder if they could get a guy like Miles Turner. I wonder if he fits with Sabonis.
Yeah, well, we did see him play pretty well alongside him. I don't know if that's a realistic possibility, but who knows? But yeah, you're right. A real rim protector would be great. But still, I mean, just from an offensive standpoint, I thought the Kings played fairly well today. I mean, they didn't have the greatest shooting night, but they've had much worse shooting games than this one. They really took themselves out of this game by turning it over, not playing great transition defense at all, and then not rotating well enough defensively to guard the three. And that's, look, there's a reason why Jokic is an MVP. The guy is incredibly hard to play against, incredibly hard to stop. Double teaming him might be the obvious answer, but it's just not as simple as that. It's how you double team him as well. When there are multiple times I saw in this game, he's got the ball with the shot clock winding down. I mean, it's under 10 seconds. He's out of the 3-point line, just standing there, finally goes to make his move, and as he's dribbling into the key, or not, hasn't even reached the paint yet, you send a double team directly at him. Like, he can see it coming.
Yeah.
He's way too good of a passer for that. That's never going to work. And then you give up an open three at the end of the shot clock after you basically played, fairly good defense for the first 20 seconds. So he's an incredibly hard guy to stop, but you have to be better than that. You have to try to disguise the double teams. You have to use them from areas of the court where he's not looking directly at you. Those are little nuances, but it makes a world of difference.
Yeah. I'm looking at my notes here, and I see Will Barton.
Yeah, he was
Will
a killer.
Barton.
He was the recipient of many of those Jokic passes late in the shot clock from a bad double team.
Yeah.
Gets a wide open three.
Yeah, and it's tough watching Davion out there by himself because even when guys are open, he's still running out there. And I feel like some other guys are like, oh, that was a bad rotation, I missed him, and they still don't run out. Even if you're not going to be close to contest it or block the shot or anything like that, at least get in the routine of running at the guy. I know they're professional players and they're used to that stuff, but any bit you can do helps. Yeah. And you just got to get there. You got to get there. And it's so frustrating watching Davion Mitchell run from guy to guy to guy to guy, and everyone else just seems like they're waiting in the paint for a rebound.
Yeah, it is very, very frustrating. It's also very frustrating to watch a guy like Davion Mitchell be able to hound and put ball pressure so well, while the other team, while the rest of the team, that for that matter, just isn't providing the same type of effort defensively. I mean, it makes such a difference in an NBA game if you can force a team to start their offense, 8 to 10 seconds into the shot clock. Makes such a huge difference.
Yeah. We had a podcast today with Matt George. He was a guest on our show earlier today. I encourage you all to check it out if you haven't listened to it. Matt George is awesome. He does the Locked On Kings podcast, so make sure you guys tune into that as well. But we were talking to him about, this game tonight and what some predictions and expectations and stuff like that. And I think we all agreed that we didn't expect the Kings to win this game, right?
No, I didn't expect them to lose by 20, though.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't lose by 20. It was 18, but...
Okay.
I'm going to take the moral victories where I can. But we didn't expect the Kings to actually win this game. We just wanted to see some competitive basketball. We wanted to see them look like they were coming out of the All-Star break, like they had some practice time together, and they were all on the same page. Unfortunately, they didn't look like that on the defensive end of the floor, and we could see that with the rotations. I think you could take that as a negative or a positive. If I'm looking on the positive side of that, I'm going to say, hey, this is a new team. We have 6 new guys, integrating them in. The rotations on defense are not going to look like this next year. No matter who the coach is, even if you kept all the same players, it's going to get better. It really will.
You would hope so.
We talked about basketball IQ. We talked about effort. We talked about energy. Yeah. All these things we liked about these new players bringing to this team.
You can see it right now in flashes. I mean, the half-court defense, don't get me wrong, it wasn't great by any means. But I felt like where Denver really got their stride or built a lead in this game was not necessarily in the half-court offense. It was off turnovers, getting out and running in transition. Tons of full court passes today we saw by the Nuggets.
Yep.
And those are off of both made baskets and missed baskets. So it's even when the Kings didn't turn it over, the Nuggets were looking to push the ball and get out and run.
You know what pissed me off the most in this entire game? Third quarter, I think it was DiVincenzo or somebody hits a 3 and they give the points to Denver. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I mean they took it away right after that.
It was like 80. It was like 82-87.
Yeah, that happened.
He hits the 3, and then they give the points to Denver, and then they're going to break to commercial.
Take it easy on the scoreboard technician.
Mark Jones says the Kings hit a 3 and they cut it to 8, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Are you serious? We score the points, and you're not even giving us the points. I was so frustrated with that call. And I know they fixed it right away, but that just goes to show my whole mental state watching this game. Yeah. That is what I was most upset about.
Well, that's good, given it was a near 20-point loss. If that's the thing you're most upset about, then I'll take that as a win. How about Davion Mitchell tonight? Not one, but 2 charges taken.
I think it was more than that.
Maybe
I was right.
I think it was 2, though.
I was writing in my notes here, and I was like, wow, the Kings are taking charges tonight. I've seen Davion take multiple charges. I think I saw, was it Sabonis or 1 or 2 other guys take a charge as well. And I'm like, wow, the Kings are actually getting calls because it's not like they're doing things differently. It's just like, finally, either they're there a quarter of a second earlier, or the referees are just like, it's Sacramento. We'll give them the charge call. Yeah. But great work from Davion Mitchell. Like I want to continue to praise this guy. I know he didn't play the greatest offensively, but I just love the energy that he brings to this team. You know, you'd like to see a little bit more than 7 points in 30 minutes. Shot 30% from the field, 0 for 4 from 3-point range. But he's a young guy. It's his first year in the NBA. He's growing. He's getting better and better and better, and I'm happy to see that.
Absolutely, I agree. Captain Obvious, great name by the way, has a question here about zone defense. Should the Kings mix in a little zone defense? Would that be any worse?
We have seen them mix in zone defense.
Maybe
not tonight, but we saw it in the last game. I mean, when you and I play at the park, and we're playing pickup basketball.
I don't know where you're going with this comparison, but here we go. All right.
What do they play?
They play a 2-3 zone here in Hawaii.
And why do they do that?
Because none of them are very big, and they don't like to run around and try very hard.
And they can't guard anybody, right?
Yeah.
Does that help them?
Sometimes, yes.
So why will it not help the Sacramento Kings?
So here's my thing. I'm gonna go away from this comparison because
we hate it. We hate zone defense. We want to play man.
When you're playing at the park, like play man to man. Come on.
Yeah.
But I actually think the Kings could play more zone defense, not for the reason of their defense will be better when they play in a zone. But because they're so bad defensively, I really think you see a lot of teams do this from time to time. Just mixing up a defense throughout the course of a game can actually have a good effect. You can confuse teams or catch them out of sync, catch them when they're not expecting something. The defensive ability won't necessarily be better in a zone, but I do think that the Kings could maybe try to surprise teams a little bit more coming out in the course of a middle of a game in a zone for brief periods of time. They're so bad at guarding the 3, it's not like it really makes much difference when you're in a zone and you're giving up wide open 3s anyway. But I do think that the Kings could maybe try to mix in a little bit of that. The problem with that right now, since they've got so many new players, we see all the miscommunications on defense all the time. When you play a zone, your communication is still incredibly important, and practice time really goes a long way into playing a solid 2-3 zone defense. So I do think that they could use it a little bit more, though. It would just take them time and practice.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Christian. We always got to have the Kings gear on. I hope you saw I posted a video just a couple days ago showing off my Sacramento Kings collection. I also, if you watch to the end, I have some awesome autograph stuff from multiple NBA teams. So if you love the Kings, if you love Kings gear and awesome jerseys and stuff, go check out that video.
Yeah. Vinny did a fantastic job editing that. It's a very, very good looking video. Nice music the whole time. And Barry's got a pretty nice collection too. So
it's a good vibe. It's a really good vibe. What's up, Kings? Good to see you there. I see someone says, how our franchise player do tonight? Which one is he talking about?
Well, I'm guessing it's Fox because everybody is really down on De'Aaron Fox right now. It's I feel like we've been here before, but I really wasn't that disappointed with De'Aaron Fox tonight. I mean, he ends up with 20 points. Do we want him to have 30? Yeah, I mean, we want him to be up around the 25, 26 point a game mark. But again, he shot 50% from the field. The turnovers were bad. I didn't see him play as hard defensively tonight as I saw from him the first couple games after this trade deadline. But again, for me, De'Aaron Fox isn't the reason the Kings lost this game. He's not. It's turnovers and it's bad defense. That's what lost this game for them, and that's not on any one person. That's on the whole team.
Yeah, I don't think it's okay to say bad Fox is back, because as Calvin said, he did shoot 50% from the field, which is great on 18 shots, but he has to get to the line more. He just has to figure it out. Only 2 free throw attempts tonight.
Same with Sabonis.
Yeah, I agree. Sabonis, Fox, they need to figure out how to get to the line, whatever it takes. If you try one thing and it doesn't work, try something else, or just keep doing it. Keep trying it. I got to see that aggressiveness. I do have to say, though, there was a point in this game that Fox missed a layup. Sabonis was right there, grabbed the rebound, put it back.
Oh, that was one of the best sequences of the whole game. Sabonis started that possession with a steal, gives it to De'Aaron. He leads the break, misses the layup. Sabonis is right there for a putback and one.
Did you see the smile on De'Aaron Fox's face after that?
Yeah, because he's never played with a guy like this before.
He's like, wow, I missed it, and somebody's got my back.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I will also say, Matt George actually had a tweet, I think somewhere in the third quarter of the game, and I think it was a really good point. He said basically Sabonis is not the type of player that the Kings they need him to play like this to do well, but he's not the type of guy that you ask to take over a game, late in a close game. De'Aaron Fox has to be that guy.
Yep.
And that we did not see from De'Aaron tonight.
Rashawn Holmes was out, sore back, you said, Cal?
That's what he is listed on the injury report with.
Yeah, it's a bummer, man. Just the whole Rashawn Holmes situation is really sad. I encourage you guys, again, to check out our podcast we had today with Matt George, where we talk a little bit about Rashawn Holmes. We also did one with Brendan Nunez a couple days ago, talked a little bit about Rashawn Holmes. Everybody seems to think that the Kings are ready to move on from him in the offseason. We're going to save that stuff for the next section of the show. Once we wrap up the whole nightcap here, we will dive into a bunch of interesting subjects. We'll talk about the draft. We'll talk about, some of these players and where they fit. We're also going to talk a little bit about LeBron and Bronny James. And we're going to talk about this De'Aaron Fox NFT rug pull or whatever happened there. But before we get there, I want to finish up this nightcap. So before we do that, Calvin, let's take a look at your keys to this game.
So key number 1 was rebound in all caps, and the Kings actually did a pretty good job of that. I mean, 39-34, Denver +5 rebounding overall, but just 3 offensive rebounds for the Nuggets, and that is just all a product of having a guy like Sabonis on your team. I mean, he's one of the only guys in the league, I think, that can single-handedly box out Nikola Jokic. Number 2 was Fox and Sabonis pick-and-roll game against the Joker. I didn't see enough of this tonight. On Saturday's game in Denver, I really want to see De'Aaron early on, these guys try to run. They did run a 2-man game, but I want to see them run the 2-man game against the Joker like Chris Paul runs it. Mm-hmm. And that guy gets open shot at the free throw line after open shot after open shot all night long when they play the Nuggets, because he knows that Jokic just isn't going to guard him when he comes off that pick and roll. He's going to have that shot all day long. And that is De'Aaron Fox's wheelhouse shot, right? Yep. Like the free throw line extended, mid-range jumper. He's shooting almost 50% for the year on those shots. I'd like to see them use that a lot more because you can also then, of course, play with Sabonis off of that. If once De'Aaron Fox hits a couple of those free throw line shots, maybe you get somebody coming in or they sag in defensively. Mm-hmm. You either kick it out to guys like HB for 3 or you have Sabonis roll into the basket. So I need to see more of that. And then number 3 was Barry's key to the game, which the Kings did not achieve tonight, and that is score more points than the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, you're not going to win a lot of games when you don't do that.
That's true. The Kings are undefeated this season when they score more points than their opponent.
Hi, Nikki. Good to see you. And Gothan, thank you for joining us. If you're going to sleep, that's totally cool, man. We will try and talk in a very mellow voice. Maybe we'll play some rain music or something, to help you fall asleep. But thank you for joining us. We always appreciate you guys. All right, we need to move on from him into a good team. Can't afford a $10 million a year player that doesn't fit its playing style. Are we talking about Rashawn Holmes here? I'm not really quite sure. I think we should touch a little bit on Harrison Barnes, Calvin. You and I were big fans of Harrison Barnes. I mean, we've been big fans. We're still big fans of his. But early on in the season, we were like, the Kings are playing this well because of Harrison Barnes. He seems to have dropped off a cliff. I know he's had a couple good games in the past few weeks, but just like overall, he's not the same guy that he was early on in the season, at least offensively. And that makes it really tough. We've praised how consistent of a guy Harrison Barnes is, right? But it just doesn't seem to show up on the scoreboard.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that completely. He's not the same guy as we saw early in the season because he's not shooting 50% from three.
Yeah.
But as far as scoring goes, I go back to I saw a stat on Twitter earlier this year, not that long ago actually, that said out of every game Harrison Barnes has played with the Sacramento Kings, nearly 50% of them he scored in between 10 and 19 points. That's what he's going to give you. Like, obviously, the Kings are a much better team when he comes out and scores 25 or 30.
Yeah.
They're much more difficult to beat. But he is really consistent. Like, that's all he ever does. And when we had Matt George on our podcast this morning, we were talking about Harrison Barnes. I really think that he is such a vital part of a good team. The problem is the Kings are not a good team.
Yeah.
So if they can find a way this offseason to get another really, really momentum-changing piece added to this team, whether it's through the draft pick or somehow trading for another player, and they're able to keep Harrison Barnes, you're going to see just how valuable he is, because he is a perfect complementary role player on a contending team or a playoff team. Again, the problem is the Kings are just not that type of team right now. So when he has lower output offensive scoring games, we're all like, Harrison Barnes is overpaid. We need to see more from Harrison Barnes. All this stuff, blah, 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 blah. That's actually not the case. Like, I think he lives up to his contract very much so. He's a very, very important player because of how many different ways he can affect a game. Defensively, versatility, rebounding. He's a really underrated rebounder, a solid shooter, solid scorer, can get to the basket, get to the free throw line. The problem is the team just isn't good enough as a whole all around him for you to really see he is who he is what I'm trying to say. Like,
yeah. He's the third best player on this team, right?
Right. He's not an all-star.
Yeah.
But he is a very, very talented player that can help a winning team.
He's the third best player on the Kings. You agree?
Oh, yeah, I would say so.
What does a playoff team need out of their third best player?
Well, in today's NBA, you almost need 3 stars in order to win now. I mean, teams can do it with 2. Mm-hmm. We'll see how Philadelphia looks with James Harden and Joel Embiid. But if you think about the dominant teams, of the past 10 years or so, they had 3 all-stars on their teams. I mean, Cleveland, Golden State, all these teams have
Miami.
Those maybe aren't the most fair comparisons. I get it. But your third best player has got to be on a team that has a chance to win in the NBA, has got to be a really, really good player. And Harrison Barnes is a really good player. But, again, he's not maybe an all-star level player.
He was the 4th best player on a championship team.
He was. And that was very early on in his career.
And
he's a better player now than he was then.
That's with multiple Hall of Famers.
But the team he played on was also much, much, much better.
Yeah, I agree with Ivan here. I think HB needs to average 15, 16 to 20. I would love for him to average, 18 to 22 points a night. I think he can. I just think that he needs the ball a little bit more, and it's tough adding a guy like Sabonis who doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands, but they give him the ball a lot. They like to run the offense through him because he's such a good passer. And HB is, for me, he needs the ball to score. He doesn't need it, but he seems to be more aggressive and play a little bit better when he has the ball in his hands.
Since the Kings have traded for Sabonis, we've seen Harrison Barnes score a good amount. I mean, I would have to actually go back and look at all the games, but his 14 points tonight, I feel like is one of, if not the lowest scoring outputs he's had since this trade happened.
Charlie wants to talk about NFTs here. Charlie, we're going to get there soon, man. We will get there. All right, Calvin, anything else you want to talk about in this game before we move on?
No, I mean, overall, I think everybody is disappointed. It's tough to have the week off, and again, we're still maybe like hanging on a little bit to that high of the trade and seeing the new look Kings and all this stuff, and we're expecting better. But again, we've got to all remember, that this team, they've fixed some of their problems, but they still have a long way to go. So it's going to be an interesting 21 games here to see how the team finishes the season.
Yeah, it will. To sum it all up, Kings lose tonight 128-110 to the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets controlled this entire game. They were up by 22 at one point. Huge game by Domantas Sabonis, 33 points, 14 rebounds. I love what I saw out of him. I love what I saw out of Davion Mitchell on the defensive end of the floor. He was actually able to take some charges tonight, but it wasn't enough. Kings fall to the Nuggets. But hey, the Blazers lost to the Warriors tonight as well, so I guess I'll take that wherever I can. But guys, we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into your Kings with Around the Crown.